did it on my own and I did not use Excel. And I was wondering, is there going to be an issue going forward, or is that okay?
Um, that might be an issue only because you might have such a large data set that you won't be able to compute it manually, like with standard deviation, things like that. There's a lot of steps to it. I mean, I'm really glad you did it, you know, by hand so that you know where the formulas come from. But I don't have any trouble going through the Excel, so you know how to do it if you'd like to do that.
Yes, please.
Okay, well, I have an example, so I have a lot of numbers, but you jump in at any time that you're not getting it, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna share my screen so you can make sure. I don't know why I opened Excel, but I'm gonna open up. Okay, let me make sure you can see that. Can you see that?
Yes, I can. It's showing like
Oh, wait.
yes, it's showing multiple. I guess kind of like if you look into two mirrors at once.
Yeah, I see that, huh? All right, wait, let me open up. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see it now.
Okay, so I have 20 numbers. You can see the 20 numbers?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so let's just start at the beginning. So I have these 20 numbers. I mean, in your example, I think you have 50 something in the discussion. So that's why it'd be really hard to do that by hand, or even with the calculator, because if you make one mistake by plugging in the number, then you know you're kind of messed up. So let's see. In discussion 1, what did you have to find? You had to find. Let's see, I have all the discussions here. Let's see. I have assignment 2. Oh, you had to do the histogram. Okay, yeah, with the classes and things. Let me start with this week first and then go into the graphs. So this week you had to find the mean. Oh, in Excel, you would just type in, anytime you use a formula, you have to type equals, okay? So for mean, they use the word average. So you could just start typing average, and you see it here in the list of functions that come up. So I would just double click on average, double click on your mouse, and then you would select all these numbers, okay, as your array. So whatever numbers you have, you would, on my mouse, I hold down the left side of my mouse and just drag down till I get all my numbers. And then I press, and so if you look at the formula, it says average of A1 to A20. So I would just select all these numbers, A1 through A20, and press enter, and that would be the mean of those numbers. So you wouldn't have to add up all those numbers and divide by 20. That's usually how you find the mean, by adding all those numbers, but you can just use the formula. I'll put it in quotes. You don't write the quotes, but if I don't put it in quotes, it figures it. So you would just use equals average. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and then so that's much easier. And then we find the median, and the median is considered the middle number. So if you're doing it by hand, what you would have to do is sort all those numbers from lower to higher before you find the median, which would be the middle between 10 and 11, position 10 and it would be the position 10 and 11, you would average those two numbers. But for us, all we have to do is type in equals median, just start typing, and then it'll come up. So you double click on it, select your numbers, and press enter. And so in that case, you would just type in equals median. And I didn't spell it right. See, it tries to figure it out. That's why I had to put the quotes there. Maybe it'll, yeah, no, it won't. So you don't type the quotes in when you're doing it, but I put the quotes in so that it won't, so you'll see what the command is. It's median, and then you select all those numbers. So that's your middle number. And then mode is the number that's most often in the list. And here I think you can see 19 is the number that's used most often, and that would be your mode. So, I mean, in this case, you really don't need Excel, but, you know, why not use it? Just type in mode and multi or single. I think it'll still give you an answer if you do multi. I only think there's one mode here. Sometimes there's two modes, numbers that are used most often. So no, it doesn't matter if you use multi. It just gives us that one number, 19. So 19 is the number that's used most often. So far, so good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, just stop me if you need more help. All right, so I want the maximum number in my list. So I could say, because I want the range now, and the range is the high minus the low. So for the highest number, I want max equals max. So I just type in equals max, and then again I press the left button on my mouse and drag to get all my numbers, and then I press enter. That's the highest number. So I'll just say max. And the lowest number, and again, you probably don't need Excel to do this, but why not? We're here. The lowest number would be the min. Drag all the numbers. And so your range would be, what you can do is use this formula. So let me just type in range. No, that's the min, sorry. And then I'll go down here and do range. So the range would just be equals this, select that little cell minus this little cell. So I select that, or I get 13. 25 minus 12 is 13. So the range just equals the max minus the min. And again, you don't need Excel to do that in this case, but you know, I'm just showing you that it'll work. The range is like a range, temperature range, you know, maybe 50 degrees today, but it's going down to 20 degrees tonight. So there's a 30-degree range. That's the high minus the low. Variance tells us how far apart our numbers are away from the mean, but we use, again, we use Excel. So we just type in var, V-A-R. Now notice there's an S and a P. Okay, every time P stands for population and S stands for sample. Now, in this case, we just have a few numbers, so we can consider this a sample, but I'll do both. But in most cases, you should know whether it's a population, like the whole population of the United States, you're not going to be able to get all the numbers for. So rarely do we use the population, but P for population. And then equals variance for the sample. You don't have to do both. Like I think in the directions it'll say find the sample variance. So this, and they should be kind of close together because you're not doing much difference. The only difference is that if you've done this by hand, you notice in the formula there you divide at some point by n, or you divide by n minus 1. So some point in the formula, when you do standard deviation and variance, if there's a population, you divide by n. If it's a sample, you divide by n minus 1. And the n stands for how many numbers you have. So these two should be really close together. And then for standard deviation, again, same thing. You have P for population. And you would say equals ST. Just start typing ST. And notice in your list here, you'll have STDEV dot P. That's for population, standard deviation. So you're going to click on that. And then you select all your numbers and press enter. And that will be your population. And then for the standard deviation of example, again, you don't have to find both. I'm just showing you. In some cases, they might ask for the population standard deviation. And then I pick all these numbers. So here in our case, we just have example because we only have a few numbers. And they should be really, really close together. They're not that far apart. So let me come back to the whiteboard just for a minute, and you don't have to know this. So on the whiteboard, for standard deviation, what you do is you take your scores. So you have your scores, then you subtract the mean, and then you square it. So what that gives us is the distance away from our mean, and then we add these up. So we sum them all up because you have a lot of different scores here. You're going to have a lot of these. Add them up, and then you divide by and however many numbers you have if it's a population, or you divide by one less. So in our case, we had 20 numbers. We're going to divide by 19 if it's example. And then we take the square root. Okay, so basically that's how you would do it longhand, but since we have Excel, we're not going to do it the longhand. So let me make sure. Oh, and then we have quartiles. But before I go on, is that making sense?
Just hold on one second. I'm copying this down.
Okay, and I'm recording this, so you'll have it.
Okay. Okay. No, go ahead then.
Well, I can wait. I can go slower.
Oh no, I've got it.
Okay. All right. So before you take the square root, that's what's called the variance. So all this before you take the square root is called the variance. And then when you take the square root, that's the standard deviation. Okay. Then you have these things called quartiles and percentiles. So I want to make sure. So percentile, so if you had like the 80th percentile, say, it's the number that 80% of the data lies below or equal to. So you have all these data points, and then so the 80th percentile, this would be 80% would be lie below that point, and including this point. So if you had, let's say we're going to do the quartiles, well, it's just what it says. Quartiles is quarters. Okay, so you have all this data. So 25% of the data lies below or equal to this number, Q1. Okay, Q3 is the third quartile. That means 75% of the data lies below or equal to that number. And you have Q2, which is the 50th percentile. And that is also the median, actually. So Q3 is the 75th percentile. And Q1 is the 25th percentile. And I'm going to show you two ways to find it. And you're going to get two different answers, but both of them are going to be correct. So I just want to explain that. Let me pick a different color here. Okay, and then between Q1 and Q3, that's called the inner quartile range. Let's see. It's hard to write on this, kind of neat, so you have to be neat about it. So let me show you how to find that in Excel. I'm going to go back to okay, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Okay, just make sure so I'm not talking. Okay, we're going to do an Excel first. So if we want the first quartile, all we have to do is equal quartile. And again, there, you see that there's three. The EXC is exclusive. We want inclusive. That means it's below or equal to. That means it includes that number. So some definitions in different books, it just depends on what you're reading. They're all different. Our book is where it includes that number. So we want the INC for inclusive. And then again, once you get your command, and don't forget to put the equals, you pick your numbers, and then you do comma, and we want look at see the choices we have. 1 is the first quartile. So if I put a 1 in here, that's all I need to do for Q1 or quartile 1, where 25% of the data is below that number or equal to that number. And then I don't have to close the parentheses. I could just say enter. So 17 should be Q1 and Q3, and I'll look at this again just to make sure it makes sense. We'll do equal quartile, inclusive, so INC, we always use inclusive for our class, and then take our numbers. Oh, see, it'll give you an error because what did I forget? I forgot to say which quartile, and I want the third quartile, so I put a 3 in here. And then I press enter. So the 1 is first quartile, 2 is the 50th percentile, 3 is the 75 percentile or Q3. So again, if you look up here in the function box right here, you'll see what I typed in. And then for 3, you'll see that I put a 3 there for quartile 3. All right, then the IQR is just equal to Q3 minus Q1. So equals Q3 minus Q1. And I don't need Excel for that. That's 23 minus 17. That's just going to be 6. Okay, so if we put these, let me take these numbers. Control. I want to copy them. Okay, and I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to stick them right here just to talk about them. And I want to sort these numbers to go from, again, I'm really done with the work. I just want to show you something. I sorted my numbers so they go from small to large. And if you look, 17 was our first quartile, which is right here. So that looks like about a quarter of our data is below that. And then 23 is right here. So 23, it looks like if you go up 75%, that's about 3/4 of the data is below 23. So that kind of makes sense too. So like Q3 was here and Q1 is here. And then our what was our median? Let's go back and look at our median was 19. That should have been in the middle. So that's Q2, which makes sense. It's right. It's about right here. So it just divides all our data into four parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's why they're called quartiles. Now, if you want the, say, 20th percentile, then you would equal, there's a command called percentile. So you would just, if you just type in P, don't forget the equal sign, you go to percentile INC inclusive. Okay, so that's the command we want because it's below or equal to. We pick all our numbers, and again, they don't have to be in order, but we're going to pick all our numbers, and we want the 20th percentile. So we do 0.20, that's 20%. So you have to, don't put 20 in there, you have to put 20% or 0.20 in terms of a decimal. And that means here at 17, 20% of the data is at or below 17. And you could just keep going. You could say equals, if you want the 85th percentile, do the INC inclusive, select your numbers, comma, if we want the 85th, we just type in 0.85. So make sure when you type that in, it's a decimal that you type. If you just type 85, watch what happens. If you just type 85, you're going to get an error. That number sign, that's an error message. So always make sure that you do 0.85, and that would be your 85th percentile. That means that's the number where 85% of the data is below or at. And this was our 20th percentile. Okay, I think that's pretty much all for this week. Those are the numbers you're going to need for this week. Let me go back to the whiteboard though and talk about what I talked about in the announcement to find a percentile. This is the other way to do that. Although, you know, Excel will do it for you. You look at the position number. The position number is where the, and in the book they call it index, is what position that number is in after you arrange them in order. Okay, so they have to be in order to do this. And again, this is just another way to do that. I'm going to check to see if it's different in Excel. So the formula that we use is the percentile divided by 100 times how many numbers you have. So n always represents the number of numbers in your data. So if we wanted the 20th percentile, which we just did in Excel, we would do 20 divided by 100 times 20 because I had 20 numbers. And this turns out to be 4. So that would be the number in position 4. But in our book, it says if we get a whole number, if you get a whole number, you have to average the next one with it. So you have to average the numbers in position 4 and 5. So that means you just add those two numbers together and divide by 2. So again, let's go over this. 20th percentile, so that's where I got this. 20 divided by 100 is 20%, and there's 20 numbers in our data. So if you work that out, you get 4. So position 4, if that's a whole number, you average the two numbers. So let me go back. Okay, here's our numbers, and they're in order, so you have to make sure.
I can't see anything yet.
Oh, sorry. Thanks for speaking up. Okay, now?
Yes.
Okay, so we put our numbers in order, and we said take the numbers in position 4 and 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Our fourth number is 17. So average 17, and the number in position 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is 17. So you add 17 plus 17 divided by 2, and that's equal to 17, and it's 17, but I'm going to do the work just in case it doesn't come easy all the time, and that should be 17. So 17, and that's what we got for our 20th percentile. Now, if you do the same work for the 85th, let's work on that one. Let me go back.
So it would be like equals 85 over 100 times number of numbers.
Yes, very good.
Okay.
So it'd be, if you want the 85th percentile, and sometimes what you get in Excel isn't exactly the same that you get with this formula, but this formula is what they gave us in the textbook. So I accept both answers, okay, but whichever way you want to do this. So I would just say the position would be 85 divided by 100 times 20. So I'm going to get my calculator. And that's 17. So the number in the 17th position, since we got a whole number, we have to average the numbers that are in position 17 and 18. You do one more, position 17 and 18. So you go one past that position. Now, these aren't the numbers. These are just telling us where these numbers are. So that's really important. That just tells us what numbers, where they are in the list. Okay, so make sure you put your numbers in order if you do it this way. This is the long way. Okay, let me go back, share. So position 17, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So that would be 23. And then the next one is also 23. So when you average 23, when you add 23 plus 23 and divide it by 2, you get 23. And in this case, we get the same answers that we did in Excel. If you look up here, the 20th percentile was 17, and we got 17, and the 85th was 23. But in some cases, it's not going to have the same answers. They're going to be really, really close, but they're not going to be the same. Now, what happens when you don't get a whole number? And that's even easier. Okay, so if it's not a whole number, if the position is not a whole number, then you just round up. That's all you have to do. So if you get the index to be, say, 4.2, you would round it up to 5. So it would be the number in position 5. You don't have to average anything. So no matter what, if you get like a decimal, then you just round it up. If you don't get a decimal, then you just go to the next position and average those two together. But like I said, you could do this all in Excel and still be okay. So those are all the numbers that you should be having to find this week. Do you have any questions on that or the Excel?
No, I took a lot of notes, so I think I'm getting the hang of it. It's just honestly with me when it comes to reading it, if there are too many big words that I just don't know, I kind of get
Yep.
like jumbled up in my head,
I
and
understand
I
that.
find myself reading it like 100 times, and then when you add numbers in, everything just gets kooky. So, but seeing it like this, it makes me feel like I should have understood it the first time. But thank you.
No, don't feel like that. It is a lot. It is a lot, and we're learning all this like in 7 weeks, and I mean 8 weeks, but the last week is just the final. So really, we only have 7 weeks of material, and that's really fast. This is gonna go really fast, trying to learn, everything in statistics. So don't be discouraged. And like I said, some people learn with videos, some people learn with text, so you have to provide everything. So you kind of have to learn how you learn best. Whether you learn with a video or whether you don't, you like to read. It just depends on how you like to learn. So that's another issue that comes in.
My thing is like
Yeah.
I'm a paperback person, so like not having a book in front of me that I can highlight and then just work out things on my own. And I don't know, I'm just like reading online. I don't mind it, but I guess I'm just old fashioned. I like a book.
No, I have to have a paper book too. I have to have a paper book in front of me. It's really, like you said, you can underline, you can highlight. It's a lot easier. What I would do though with learning online is, like you said, like you did, you maybe, try to take notes, and then like, I don't know, this is just an example. Have one page for just like things about the population. Have one page for things about the sample, and you write everything down, when you come across it, so that you have all these things about the population, everything about the sample, everything about standard deviation on this one page, and that might help too, because then it kind of separates out all the topics that we're talking about. But for what I would do too is look at your assignments first, and those are the things that you need to know. So if you read through the discussion and find out what it's asking. Read through the assignment and find out what's asking. Look at the connect exercises, and then that's exactly what you would need to focus on, you know, so that it's not all jumbled up. That might help too, looking at it backwards. What did I want to talk about next though is the graphing, like for your discussion one or your assignment one, even no matter what, anybody can redo their assignments. So even if you're still not understanding it after this, you could still redo it. Or, you know, you can send it to me. I just need a more focused question so I can really, really help. So what I'm going to do now is just go through the same example with Excel. And let's see. Let me go to this problem. I'm going to copy these numbers and go to a okay, so here are my numbers, same example, and I want to do a histogram for those. I want to group them. So here's what I was talking about next week. Hopefully, hopefully this will help about how to group these numbers. Okay, so I have 20 numbers. To decide how many groups. We're going to use this formula, and n again is the number of numbers you have, things in the data, in the example, I'll say. And then k is an exponent. So like if we have 20 numbers, we need to find something bigger that's in the form 2 to the k. So let's just start from the beginning. 2 to the first is 2. That's not bigger than 20. 2 squared is 4. That won't cut it. 2 cubed is 8. That's still not big enough. 2 to the fourth is 16. That's not big enough. Now 2 to the fifth is 2 5 times, and that's 32. Now that's where we can stop, okay, because 32 is bigger than 20. So what that tells us is that we need 5 groups. The exponent tells us how many groups we need. So say we had 100 things in the example, 100 numbers. So we would keep going. We would say 2 to the 6th is 64. 2 to the 7th would be 128. 64 is not bigger than 100, but 128 is bigger than 100, so we can stop. And in that case, we would use 7 groups. Okay, so you would just keep going and find out what exponent on the 2, when you multiply 2 that many times, is bigger than the number of numbers you have in your example. So in our case, we need 5 groups. Now, if we go back, let's see, in our number, 12 was the smallest and 25 was the biggest. So it has to go from 12 to 25 with 5 groups. Okay, now the size of the groups is going to be the max minus the min divided by the number of groups. So in our case, the highest number was 25, the lowest number was 12, and we had 5 groups. So that would be 13 divided by 5 is 2 point something. It doesn't matter because you're always going to round up here in these examples. So we're going to say 3. So there's 3 things in each interval, which means if we start at 12, so the first one would have 12, 13, 14. So that would be 12 to 14 would be our first class. They call them classes. It's the same as groups because there's 3 things in there, 12, 13, 14. And then our next one would be 15 because you don't overlap. So 15, 16, 17. And then don't overlap. So we have to start at 18, 18, 19, 20. And then 21, 22, 23. And then 24 to 26. Okay, so that is how you decide many groups. Okay, again, we used 2 to the 5th was bigger than 20. That gave us our 5 groups. And then the size of the groups, you use that formula there. And then I start with the minimum number 12 and go all the way up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 classes. Let me take this to Excel. This is what I wanted you to do last week. Okay, so I have 12 to 14. I have to. Okay, if that happens, look, I got a date. I need to go ahead and just format this. So I go, let's see, format cells. And I don't want dates. I just want text. So I just say, okay. And then I'm going to start over. So you might have to format your cells to just text. So 15 to 17, 18 to 20, 21 to 23, and 24 to 26. Okay, now here's where you can do it by hand. If you don't like what I'm going to do next, you can just do this by hand. Count out how many numbers you have between 12 and 14. Well, there's only 1. So I just put 1. So I'm just counting them. And then 15 through 17, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you could just put 5 numbers between 15 and 17. So you can do that by hand if you want to. But if you have a large amount of numbers, it's good to learn what to do. So what you have to do is set up something called bin limits. And what this is, it's just the highest number of each class. So I have 14, then I have 17. It's just the right-hand boundary of each interval. 23, and the last one's going to be 26. So that's all that is. It's just these last numbers of each of the intervals. And I call them, they're called the bin limits. These are called bins, but I call them classes or groups. Okay, and a bin limit is the last number or the highest number in each interval. And then what I do right here, I select all 5 lines, and I just type in, okay, let me start this over. I just select these 5, I type equals frequency, and then I pick my array, comma, and I pick my bin array. Okay, so I pick my numbers for my first one, and then I do comma, and then I do the limits on the second one and press Control Shift Enter. You press Control Shift Enter and you get your results. So I have 1 and 14. So I have one number between 12 and 14. I have 5 numbers between 15 and 17. So what that did was count up my numbers for me. So if I have if I have 100 numbers, this is the way to do that. So let me do it again just so you see it. I select the 5 rows. I just type in equals frequency, and it comes up right here. So I select that, and then I select my numbers, comma, I type my comma, and then I select my bin limits, and I press Control Shift Enter, and it does it for me. It counts those numbers for me. So I can just say count. Okay, now if I want to graph, I can hide this. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this column. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, that wouldn't let me work. Okay, I'm going to copy this. Just move it down here. What I'm trying to do is get these columns next to each other. And I can't do that. Okay, that's fine. I go to, let me say, okay, I'm going to select this column, and then I press Control. Wait. All right, let's see what happens here. All right, that'll work. Okay, I want to take this column and this column. So what I do to do that, I press Control. All right. I select this column and then I press Control, and I keep my hand on Control to get that column because I don't want this bin limit column in my graph. And then I just go Insert Column, and it gives me my graph. It gives me a bar chart. So I did Insert bar chart, and then I just click on the bar and I do Format Data Series, and I can close the gaps. So a histogram has no spaces in the bars. Let me do that again so you see. That was too fast. All right, I want to graph this. So I select the intervals for my first column, and then I press Control, and then on my mouse, I pick the left button and select that other count column, and I go Insert Column or Bar Chart, and I pick the simplest one. You don't have to get fancy here. And that gives me a bar chart. Now I don't want this, so I can delete that, and then I'll show you how to format it. But if you click on any of the bars, so I just left clicked on the bar, and I did Format Data Series. And if you look at the gap, it says gap width, no gap. I don't want any gaps between my bars. I just put that over to 0. Again, this is Format Data Series, and I get this nice histogram. This is called a histogram. And then when I go out to Layout, I can put a chart title on it. So I want to do that above chart. So make sure you title it, and then you can just type in here what you want to title it. And I want to go to layout and do the axis title. So up here on the left, you see axis titles. I just click on that. I want the horizontal below the axis. So it gives me a title there, and you can just type in what you want to type. And I also want the vertical axis. So I want a vertical title, or I want a horizontal title. I want one next to it, and that gives me a way to title it. So you can also do this and get a pie chart, or pie chart. So I'm going to select the interval column, and then I'm going to press Control and select the other column, the count column, and I want to do insert a pie chart, and you get this nice pie chart, and you can again format your slices here. Format data series. I don't think I really have to format this. I can add the data labels. Let's see. And I want to show percent. So I check the percent. I don't want to show the value. I want to change, with a pie chart, you want percentages, and then you can move these around to make them look nicer. And also you can go to layout up here on the top. It says layout, and do a chart title, and make it however you want to make it. Okay, so again, to make the histogram, you would just select your data and do Control, select this data, so that you get the two columns that you want to represent in a graph. So that's what we did in week 1. I know that was really fast, but was that kind of helpful, hopefully?
It was. So just to recap, for the chart is just control and select the data. But
on the second column,
one.
yes.
But
Only
for,
because
go ahead.
only because they're not next to each other. If you don't like that, what I would do, if that doesn't work for you, because sometimes, I mean, it gets a little complicated. What I would do is, come down here.
And do it where it's next to each other.
Yeah, and put them next to each other. Right, you have to retype everything, which is kind of.
No, you're good. I got that part. It was just the I was making sure that I had that down, and then the bin limits. When we're getting bin limits, it's Control Shift Enter.
Control Shift Enter. Yes.
Yeah, that was it. I was just trying to make sure that I had that written down right.
Okay, so for that, you would just select your 5 rows and go equals frequency. Frequency right here. And then again, select your numbers, do comma, select your bin limits, enter, and oh, didn't work. Okay, equals frequency. I mean, I can see how anybody gets frustrated with this, but then your bin limits, enter. I didn't press Control. I just told you how to do that, and I didn't do it. Okay. I got to over. Okay, then press. Let me start over. Okay. So select the 5 equals frequency. comma, select your bin limits, and then do Control Shift Enter at the same time. Yes. And then again, what I would do is just copy all these down, type these in here, and then do the charts. If you don't want to do the control here, I can just copy these. Okay, and then since they're next to each other, it's really a lot easier to do the bar chart, and then just click on one of the bars again in Format Data Series, and then go to No Gap. Okay, so that's pretty much everything in Excel that you'll need to know. We're not going to use Excel extensively anymore, so you know, we might use it once in a while, but don't panic or don't struggle with it. Okay.
Okay.
One last thing. There's also I should have done that. I just saw. You can also do is it asks for a scatter plot here. So let me just show you that real quick. If you want a scatter plot, you would just select your data, go to Insert, and it's right here, Scatter on top, and that's called a scatter plot where you have your points, just your dots. So that's how you would do that one, scatter plot. And then you can label it however you need to. So basically, we just did bar chart, histogram, the pie chart, and a scatter plot. Did you have any like specific questions on any of the homework or anything?
No, actually, you answered a lot of questions. We're just going over what you were going over.
Okay, so next time, like I said, I don't want anybody struggling in here. If you just want to get on like one-to-one, just let me know when you're available, and we can just chat one-to-one instead of you having to wait till Sunday. You know, I'm okay with that. Or you know, just email me, text me. I try to. You can call, text if you have questions. Because I don't want anybody spending hours and hours on something that, you know, I couldn't explain probably for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, all right. Well, have a good evening and have fun putting up your tree.
I will do. Thank you for taking time with me.
No problem. Like I said, call, text, email. Just you know, keep me posted. And we can get on here anytime that you need help.
Thank you so much.
All right, you take care, and I'm gonna send the video out. So just it takes a while to publish it, but I'll have that out tonight.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, let me get on this discussion before it's too late.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.